All right, so today we're just kind of, it's kind of a, I wanted to just keep some things simple for a couple of weeks before we enter into our new June schedule. So I wanted to just go over shading, real simple doodling with just black and that's it, just graphite and a pen. And we also need a blender. Now, a lot of people don't have these little tortillons in their collection. I mean, I didn't have one until recently, but I also been making my own for a long time. So I'm going to show you how to make a blending stump because you can try using one of these little Q-tips, the little pointy ones. Those are okay, but for some reason, they don't hold up as well. The little tip sort of falls apart when you're trying to blend. These little guys, these little tortillons, they can cost quite a bit for just a piece of rolled paper. Maybe because they're made by hand, I don't know, but they can be expensive. So I just want to share with you how to make a blending stump. And then we will go into our fun little, simple but fun little effective doodling technique. So what I want to do is show you how to make this blending stump first. So what I have is a piece of paper. It's like a strip of paper that's 11 inches long and it's cut 4 inches wide. It could be 3 inches wide. Just depends on how long you want your stump to be or how long you want the handle to be. But 11 inches long is a good size. And what you need too is some masking tape. You can use a ruler or scissors, a metal ruler or scissors. You'll see why. I'll just give you the lowdown on that. The other thing you'll need is a craft knife. And I always like to have a little surface to cut on, something, you'll see why, and some sandpaper, just plain. This is like I think I cut it off, but I think it's 150 grit. It's something kind of medium weight, medium sandpaper, not too fine and not too coarse, kind of a medium grade. Now to make this blending step, I'm going to just take my paper and I'm going to cut a corner off. And the reason I'm doing this is it's going to be easier to start the roll or start the to make a really tight roll on this end rather than trying to do it on a thick end. So what I'm going to do too is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to make kind of a curling. I'm going to kind of curl it. You know how you do this when you're doing ribbon, right? Oops, look what I just did. That was a first. So I'm going to have to cut that off. Never done that. I think I'll do it with, those were good scissors. I'll just do it with my metal ruler. But you can do it with scissors if you're careful, just be careful. So you want to just kind of create that round, sort of break down the ends of the paper a little bit. You just want to soften that and get that curl. You want that curl to get started. And then what you need to do is to really get this. Now you want that curl, that really tight. I mean, it has to be where there's no gap in the center. So what I'm doing is I'm just gently, this is just to get it started is always the hardest because you don't want a hollow end. You don't want it hollow on the inside. You want it perfectly, like there's no gap on the inside. So however you get that started, and this just for me, it's just making that just tiny little roll, and that's probably the hardest part. You'll need to have a piece of tape also kind of on hand. Like I'm just going to take this piece of tape and I'm going to have it ready. So it's there. And also my knife, I don't need that right now, but I just want to get this started. Now this is, I don't want to rush you. I want you just to feel it. You'll feel when it's really ready to start. You want to have a little, just no gap if you can possibly help it. I mean, sometimes it's just trying to do it. I mean, it's just rolling it and getting that tight start. And then once you get it started, it's pretty easy. So I'm just kind of gently pushing it and I'm going to get it as tight as I can get. And then once I feel like it's tight, and then I just start to roll it and then take it in your fingers and roll the paper and just keep that nice tight roll as tight as you can. If it's not perfect, that's okay. It's still going to work. It's just not as good as the really tight one. So I'm rolling it really tight. I've got it in my fingers and nice, it's a nice, we're going to trim the ends off with scissors. That's why it's really good to have a longer or wider piece to start. Just gonna roll it as tight as possible. And if there's probably another way, I bet you there's a machine. Alexis, you might know. There's probably, I think there are little rolling machines, but the problem with those is they will leave a hole, in the center because you're using a pin to roll it. So you want to try to get as tight as possible. Now, keeping my fingers right on this, I'm going to use my tape just to make sure that it's on there and it stays tight. I can do that. I can actually wrap the whole thing. Let's just take a little more tape, and I'm going to, and it's not supposed to be pretty. This is not a pretty looking tool. There's nothing aesthetically nice about it, but it will work. So I'm just going to take and I'm just rolling my tape around it. So I really have a nice tight feel. It's very firm. So now, all right, so this is and I think I see, when you see that, like what I did is I rolled it and I rolled it sort of where that, you could see that hole right in the center. I'm going to cut that off so that it's straight flush. Let's see if I can get my knife here. And when you're cutting with a knife, always go through the layers rather than trying to cut through all of it at once. So I could see where that hole is, and I'm just going to cut through the layers very carefully. I'm not going to try to press down too hard. I'm just cutting, kind of sliding it through until I get all the way through. So basically, I'm just cutting through each layer, not putting so much pressure down to make my knife slip. You just do it go through each, just basically sawing through the layers. I can even do it like this with my back and forth, very gentle, because you don't want to cut yourself. X-Acto knives, sharp X-Acto knives can be dangerous, as we know. So I'm just trying to cut that off, and I think I finally got it. Just takes a little bit of, not elbow grease. You don't want to put too much pressure. Just take it and get that through. Slowly but surely. It's going to get there. And I'm also cutting through the tape, which is some adhesive, and I maybe shouldn't have wrapped it around, but that's okay. So I'm almost through it. That's how just being patient will get you through. And then if I look, once it's cut all the way through, which I'm going to just keep doing this, I just want to keep that gentle. Boy, there's a lot of paper, it's a long roll, but it's getting there. So you can see it's almost there. I can turn it a little bit to get to the other side. But this is if you don't have a blending stump, and they are expensive, and they're not easy to find. I don't know if you'd have to go to an art supply store to buy them. And so I just thought this would be a good thing to learn how to make your own. Because shading and blending is such a wonderful primary way to be creative. There it is, finally gone. So the tip is off. So you can see the little rolled tip is coming apart here. That's good. I'm throwing that away. And what I have is the end. Now I did pretty good. You can see there's barely a hole there. So that's pretty nice. Now the next step is I really would want to do this over a trash can, but because I can't put my trash can in front of the camera, I'm going to do it over a piece of paper, just so that I can take the shavings and move them out of the way. So I'm just going to take this, and now what you want to do is you're going to make this pointy. So I've got this edge, this little flat edge here that's nice and tightly rolled, and I'm going to take my blade, and I'm working away from my hand. And I'm just going to take it, and I'm putting it on my table here, and I'm just going to start to point it by just taking the blade and just kind of going through the layers. And it's going to take a little bit and I'm going to go through that masking tape, which is actually sticking to my blade. But just want to go through, and basically I'm sharpening it like you would a pencil, like the old-fashioned way when we didn't have pencil sharpeners, we would use a knife to sharpen it. And I'm just going to go through all those layers, especially that tape, because the tape is kind of keeping me from sharpening it. But I'm just doing this. Now this is a little bit of elbow grease, and if you have fingers that are not, if you have arthritic fingers or anything like that, I apologize. But there are ergonomic craft knives that you could use if that were the case. So you can see it's kind of messy, but as I kind of whittle this down, and this takes just a little time, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have some doodling to do, but you can see I can, as long as I get this to a point, to a decent point, it doesn't have to be sharp, but I'm kind of getting it to a point. You can see it's kind of a nice point. And then the very last step, which I'm going to just get this extra paper off. So I've got it to a nice, whittled it down to a nice point, pointy as I can possibly get it. I'm going to put my knife away. It's dangerous to have it without the top. I'm going to now I have a nice, decent point. I'm going to get rid of those little shavings. And now what I want to do is take my sandpaper, and I'm just going to gently sort of soften that edge of the my little blending stump. And this has a really nice point. This came out nice. You can just try, this is a little easier. You can see how you're just able to get that nice little point, and then get off all the extra little bits and pieces that are sort of loose. And now I have a nice little blending stump. And so that's the little lesson today on how to make your own blending stump. Because for the price, I've seen the prices anywhere in levels of $5 for one of these, but I guess it's worth $5 if you have to make it yourself. So there is our blending stump. But they do come, like, you can buy them with little rolled, these little guides. This one's I bought from Amazon, but I like mine better. I like my handmade ones. So there it is. And I'm going to also try it with one of these so we can just try. So now we get to go to our doodling. So what I asked you to do is I had this PDF of this leaf, and I asked you to cut it out. And of course, it makes sense that you would save this, which is good. We'll use this. But we're going to use the whole. So if that didn't happen today, that's okay. We're still going to do it two ways. We're going to do our project a couple of ways. So have with you a sponge, like a small sponge, like these little makeup clothes cell sponges are really nice, or these little blending brushes, something, or even a soft watercolor brush will work. A toothbrush would work, but it would be a little rougher. I think it would not blend as well. But a tool that you can blend with, just a soft blend. And we also want to have a 4B or softer pencil. So I've got this 4B here, and some pens. If you have some fine tip pens, like I've got number 1, 2, and 3. These are my little little fine tip pens. And that's all you're going to need for this part. Also, if you have an eraser, erasers are nice because we can make highlights with the eraser and your blending stump, or something to blend with. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I will do is the one with this part, and then I'll do one using this, so we can have two things to work with. So I have a piece of, this is just hot press watercolor paper, actually, that's all I had, but if you have cardstock or a journal page, that would be great. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my leaf, I'm going to just lay it on top of the cardstock. And you can lay it any way you want. You can make it sideways, however you want to orient it. I'm just going to orient mine upside, just like this, straight, but however you want to do that. So I'm going to take my pencil, and actually that's actually inked. I'm just going to put some pencil marks around on my stencil. This is a stencil. I'm just going to put it around it, not really on the cardstock. I'm just going around. I'm just going to just want to get that pencil graphite onto the stencil. You can also do this with commercially made stencils, like plastic. Just if you have commercial stencils at home, then you can use one of those as well. And it's great to have stencils that have a nice wide opening like these, where there's not any detail inside, but just a wide opening. So just go around. I'm just kind of scribbling some graphite And this could be done off the cardstock as well, but I'm just kind of doing it in case I get a little bit on the cardstock. That's okay, because I'm going to be blending this graphite into the card. And then I'll show you the other one too with the other. We'll do the same thing with the other one. So now I've got that. Now I'm going to take my a sponge, this blending thing, and I'm going to bring that. I'm bringing it in. I'm just basically rubbing the graphite into off of the paper onto the cardstock, and I'm going from the out going in like this. So all I've done is just created an image, but a very light and very pale image. So I'm going to lift it off, and you'll see I've got a beautiful shadow of a leaf. Now let's take and that will doodle in. The same thing, I'm going to do the same thing. This is if you have, of course, the cutout, we can just do the same thing. We can just scribble all over it. Just lay down some graphite. Just so you have, or you can trace, but this is a way of tracing. If you want to just kind of go out like this, like just a gentle outward, kind of fan it out and let it kind of hit the cardstock, that's good. Any way that you can get this graphite onto your leaf. If you are using plastic, this will work as well. Plastic actually will probably make it even more. Oops, gotta keep that leaf on. Or if you want to color, I probably should have thought of this. Color first onto anything before you. Here we go. This is what I'm going to do. Okay, so now I've got kind of some graphite that I can move around. Now I'm just going to take it. You can see I already had it happen on this. I can always turn it over and just do it on this side. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I've got this covered with graphite. You can get darker or however you want to do it. I'm going to use a sponge this time and just see how it works. I've only used the blending brush, but I want to try the sponge. So I'm just going to take it and move it. Got to hold it still. And just going to move it out. And from the center going out. And then I'm going to just kind of I want that image to just show up. It's kind of like a tracing technique without making the harsh lines of the pencil or the pen. I'm going to see how that looks with the, now see how I got a beautiful image, another sort of a nice soft image. Now I've got something I can doodle inside or doodle out or trace, make like fine lines. So we'll start this one because some of you I know had already done the outside. So now I'm going to take a number 1 pen. And it would to just do, maybe starting on the inside is I'm going to do a line just to sort of to determine that central part of the leaf. I'm just going to make kind of a nice sweeping line like this down the center. And then I'm going to take lines, and you can do circles, shapes, anything you want, but I'm just going to do these lines because I think they're kind of make sense. I'm going to take some lines and I'm going to just close them up like this. So I'm making kind of the veins, is sort of a stylized vein of these leaves. And I'm just going to bring this one up like that. Just kind of just try different things, lines that work. Soft, just like little lines. And it doesn't matter. The little curve kind of helps, kind of gives it a more natural look, but if you want to do straight lines, that's okay too. Just kind of trying this. This is where you just take your time and you just make kind of what makes sense if you're making a leaf. And this is your own, your leaf, so it's going to look the way you are making it. So it's okay however you do it. I think this is an oak leaf. I believe it is. In California, we had so many oak trees. They were so beautiful. I miss seeing oak trees. I haven't seen them in a while. So I'm just making these leaves or these veins. I am using a number 1 because the number 1 has just got a nice fine line, but if you only have a 3 or a 5 or a 7, that's okay too. So I've got this going, and now I'm going to just take, I think it will look better if I just take and I'm just going to outline the shape from where the graphite is. I can kind of go loose around it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but follow that shadow and just kind of reinforce that. And now that you've got your drawing already there, this is actually really good for eye-hand coordination, because not eye-hand coordination, just like a motor skill thing. Go very slow and mindfully. If you feel like you need to turn it to make it flow easier, do that. So now I'm just going to start my line here and just following that little shadow. This kind of reminds me of komomi, if you've done komomi before. Go slowly around the edge of that shape that you made and have those lines connect. So now we've got this one, and I like that little shading that's going on in the really light lines on the inside. So what we do after this is we've done all of our pen work, right, at least for now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our pencil, and if yours became dull because you were, just sharpen, make it a sharp pencil. So I'm going to sharpen my tip here. And these, by the way, can be used over and over again. You can make these, just keep adding more graphite, and you can use your little stencils over and over. Now, here what I'm going to do is I want to bring shadows out. So I'm just going to go along this center. I'm just going to take some graphite, and I'm going to go along the outside of this center part of the leaf. And then I'm going to go, and I'm just thinking of light. So I'm going to take the pencil and I'm going to bring some graphite at the bottom part of each of these vein lines or vein shapes. Very, very simple. I'm going to do the same thing here on this side. And get all those in there. Okay, so now I've got that. Now this is the next step. All I need to do, because or I could go, let's go around. Let's take the pencil and bring it on this side of the center part. So that's a nice focal point. Here we are, like that. So now you have a little bit of contrast. But even better is when you use your blending stump or your tool to blend. Now we're going to just start blending just from that line and moving it, kind of softening that edge and shading it. You could actually go, let's just go down the whole side, right side of that leaf. And the more graphite you have, the more, here comes Malzilla, the more graphite you have on there. And you can always add more if it's not shading enough for you. Let's say if you want it to be more dramatic, you can just add a little more graphite in your areas here. Like I'm just going to put a little bit more, just to give it a little more pop, especially on that side. And just kind of take your smudging tool and shade it. Give it some dimension and depth. And it's so easy because there's really nothing, we're not using color today, which usually I don't really think about the design as much with color, because color itself your brain deals with color differently than it does just monochromatic. So it's really good to have a foundation sometimes of just creating dimension and shape and drama just with black and white. Get back to our roots of drawing and of ink, pen and ink, I guess. And in this case, it's graphite and ink. So I've got that one side shaded. Same thing, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I want to leave those highlights. So I want to kind of where the highlights are. Just want to leave those. And this, of course, we're going to go all the way down. Let's just go all the way down. And the eraser is good to keep the highlights. If you do lose some, you can always take the tip of your eraser and kind of bring back those highlights. I think I'd like the center of this leaf to be really more dramatic and kind of let it fade out to the light and be lighter on the edge, on the ends. So I'm going to add a little more graphite to my, just a little bit more. Try to build some depth here. Do that with all of these little shapes here even. And then just take your blender and keep working it. Working from the center, I guess the center of the leaf to outwards would be good, and then you'll retain your highlights on the ends. And this is hot press watercolor paper. It would work on any smooth paper, even office paper. This will work just fine. And I wish I had some, I'd love some just illustration board or something. That would be really nice. I think these would be also fun to send out. You know, you can put a quote on it, which I'll show you. I have a nice little quote we can write. So I have a little area where I've lost the highlight, completely lost it. So I want to show you how you can bring that back. So I've kind of got it to where I like it pretty much. And I add a little more up here. And then I want to get rid of some, I want to highlight. Here we are. That looks a little dark, but it's all right. I can always erase. So if I have a pen, an eraser, which this one doesn't have very many points. I kind of noticed that it's a little large, so I'm going to cut. Just going to cut a little edge off. If you have if you have an eraser that you want to get a nice sharp edge, just cut it down and make a little pointy edged part. I mean, I could just take this and I can even cut it a little bit more. And now I have this nice little wedge going on here, and I could use that. I can even make a little even more pointy, I think. So now I've got a nice little sharp edge. I love these vinyl erasers for that reason. So now I see this area, these areas that need some highlights, more highlights. So I'm just going to take my eraser. I'm going to bring out those highlights. And when you do that, always because it gets dark on the end, take your tip of your eraser and just wipe off the dark and then go to the next side, especially if you're highlighting really delicate areas or small little areas. You can actually take those areas out and just get that highlight back. And you can do that same thing with any of this. Or if you wanted to erase this halo that you've created, you can do that too. So I'm just going to go, in fact, I'll just do that to show you. Your eraser is going to be part of your creative tool because it brings back the highlights where you want them. And the smudges, where you don't want them, you can get rid of them. And at the end of this, if I wanted to seal this, I've got a couple of ways I could seal this because the graphite will keep smudging, moving around. You can use a spray or you can use a wax-based sealer, kind of like the diamond glaze. And I'm going to keep, because I have graphite on my fingers, I'm going to keep putting it will keep transferring onto my paper. So if you have a little rag close by, something to wipe off the extra graphite off your fingers, and that will also keep it clean. So now I'm going to just brush that off, and I kind of like that, just like it is, very simple and clean. And I have a little quote that I like to write, or you can write anything, but I just write something around it. Like in this one, I wrote, this one was done with a cold press watercolor paper. It's a little bit rougher because it was with cold press watercolor, but I wrote, even a leaf in the wind settles sometimes. And that, would be fun just to give as a gift card or something like that. Same thing here. So we've got this going on. You can also just do little more details with your with your pens if you want to make maybe more lines, or you could make a second line around the edge, or if you want to, you can also take your graphite and make a little more shading, maybe on one side of the leaf, to make it, give it the feeling that it is sitting on some surface. It's kind of highlights it, lifts it up a little bit. So I'm just going to do that a little bit just to show you on the outside of my drawing, or my tracing actually. I'm just going to kind of go here on only this one side. Maybe bring that out a little bit, and then I'm just going to take my blending tool and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to soften that edge and bring it out from the center outward. And here I'll just go around the edge a little bit just to lift that leaf up. To bring it out more, actually. It brings it up, makes it come off the paper a little. There we go. So there, just keep playing with that until you get that dimension. I think it would look also really nice on this side to do the same thing. I want to make sure we're good on time. Oh, we've got plenty of time. Just want to make sure, because we're going to do the other one too. So take that pencil and go around it, and that does sort of lift it off a lot off the page. And just kind of make it uneven, maybe more intense in the graphite, kind of in these little grooves, and not even at all on the outside. And now take your blending tool and just work it. Just for fun, I'm going to try this little guy. I've never had luck, but I'm going to see how it works. This little Q-tip. It works great for details, but it won't last long. That's the only thing. I'm able to blend, which is good. This little cotton swab. Pointy, it's nice and pointy. And so far, I'm going to see how long it holds up. It's not blending as well as the rolled paper, but it's still doing a pretty good job. So if you only have that, now, of course, I don't have as much control because it doesn't have a long end. And again, I can always use my little small eraser to lift up, just little lift up highlights. I'm just going to go back to the one I just made. These have a nice feel to them. And just kind of create that beautiful leaf. There we go. And just keep working it until it just gets to where you like it. So there it is. It's kind of lifting off the page. We didn't have to. I mean, it looks a lot better than just a plain. Even it looks better actually than this one. Now I'll show you the next one based on the whole. This is kind of. Oh, you already saw that. But so basically, we're going to take this one and do the same thing. But we could do other things like we can do circles. I think that would be fun to draw circles inside. Something different. So here we got a more traditional one, and then this one can be just some circles. This is where we draw slowly, mindfully. Maybe I can just stop here and I can do lines. Let's see, I'll just do. This is just basically going to do some doodling inside. Or if you do Zentangle, you can make your Zentangle patterns inside this as well. Here I'm just going to do circles for a bit, and then I'll probably do some lines. Okay, so that's the first third. I think that's about third of the way through. So now I'm going to do a line starting here, and I'm going to kind of bring that down. And then I'm going to do lines here just to see what happens. And I'm going to bring this here. The more interesting I think it becomes. Like I'm just going to go join these lines and bring this up here, up to the top. It's a little kind of weird there, but that's okay. I'll figure it out. I'll just bring a circle here to make it look like it was done on purpose. There we are. So the reason we're making circles, this little hollow circles, is we're going to shade around these to give them some depth and dimension. So that's that. And then I can just leave this alone, or I could do more lines kind of going up like this maybe. Or like that. And then if I want to keep adding lines, I think I'll just do what I was doing on the other one because it kind of was a real quick way to get to just make some shapes and lines. But however you do this, whatever you want to do, it's your doodle inside this leaf. But the circles are important to have in there somehow. You can do the whole thing in circles too if you want. But I'll show you what we'll do. There we go, like that. I'll just leave it like that. So now with the circles, here we are. We take our pencil and we're going to go the same. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our pencil and go around the lines you just did. Maybe in some areas, you can have less pencil or just maybe shade the bottom, but just kind of go outside the line and just add your graphite. And here I'll take that, I'll go underneath. I'll just follow this line that's sort of the main central leaf here. And I'll keep going around these circles. So you've got all of your circles with some graphite. Here, well, this one didn't. And what happens with this, even if your lines are not perfect, if your lines are a little wonky, the graphite kind of shields, covers that. So if you have a line that just doesn't quite look flowing enough, your graphite will conceal that a little bit. So get your shading kind of back, kind of what you did before, just kind of get some graphite around your lines. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to take our blending tool and now shade. This is why it's good to have a nice sharp tool and just go around your circles and create little shadows. You can make it coming from a certain area, or you can make it just all around, however you want to do this. And if you want to keep like in this case, if I wanted to just keep just really be a little looser, I can put my leaf stencil right over it, and I can then kind of be a little more free and shadow, kind of using that as a shield, so that it actually won't go. I can be a little bit more free and loose in shading because I don't have to worry about going outside the borders. But you can still do it the other way too. So I'm just going to show you how that works. So I was able to go a little quicker. It's not necessary. If you didn't have your stencil, you could do it on a second leaf, tracing it like the other way that we did. And then you could see how fun those circle shapes just start to pop out. And with the Zentangle, they do that too. They shade, and that gives that really amazing, kind of finishes it off and gives some dimension. And it's really a very primary, basic drawing skill that's good to have in any creative, anything you're doing creatively. And there's so little, we don't have to have materials with us. We can just do it with very simple materials, no water to spill. You can do it anywhere. So I'm just I want to soften these little circles, and now I'll just shade down here. And you'll notice that your stump may get a little bit kind of dull. You can always sharpen it with the sandpaper, just like you would kind of like a pencil. I have these commercial ones that they work too, but they're a little bit rougher. I mean, they don't blend as softly, but they still work. Just add graphite if you notice that you don't have any. Just go ahead and add it. And if this is in a journal page, you can seal it with you can actually paint over it with some clear gesso, matte gesso, if you want, just so that it stops smudging. Because it'll be smudgeable until further notice. So now this is that one. Now I like it kind of like that, but I can also do lines around it if I want to. I'll take my pen and just take around that shadow. Go all the way around. And this is I love this because I just follow the line that's already there on the outside, my little shadow. But if I want to, I can be more creative and kind of make it go in different directions. But this is a very relaxing to just kind of follow that. And then it kind of makes it just looks different each time. It makes the leaf look different because you're kind of making new lines. You're kind of following it, but you can also make new ones. Like I'm making an extra little dip there. I'm just going to go follow this, and then I can make my stem longer if I want. And now turning it around is always good for you just to be able to follow. It's easier to follow downwards and follow this way than going up. Drawing down is a lot better and there's much more flow than trying to go upwards. Just follow it all the way around. There. Well, that one I think is fun. Now, if I want, I can actually add more shadows around it, but I can also bring highlights out, more highlights. So I'm going to take my little eraser and I'm just going to highlight these little areas here. Same thing, I can just take that little pointy part and highlight. And then I can also take my little eraser and bring out more light into the circles. And then just brush it off if you have little crumbs on there, just brush it off. You can always just keep playing with it until you get it to where you really are happy with it. And it's just keeping it real simple with the black and white. We've got two completely different designs here. And once that's all done, then you can write a quote or just leave it as it is if it's in a journal page. But there they are. And then you can also take, if you just have a commercial, you can even take a leaf, let's say, I'm going to get another piece of paper. If you want to do another shape, like real simple, just draw with your graphite or a pen or whatever you have. You can do just a simple leaf like this. However, you can, of course, change it because you're going to cut it out. There we are, like this. Maybe just leave it like that. Something real simple. And then this is how I cut out my shape. I just put it on a piece of paper. With a cutting of something in the back, and I'm going to start with I'm just going to cut cut it out. Now this is a lot easier than the other one because the other one had a lot more detail. And I'm not even following the lines. I'm just gonna, there we go, like that. And now I have my negative and my positive here. And the same thing, I can do the same exact thing on another piece of paper. Like, let's say I'll take this, here's another piece. I think I did like this one better. I like the outside one better. But either way, you can take your pencil, and I've got, there you go, just put it on. I'll put it on this sideways this time. I'm just going to take my graphite and go on the outside of my leaf. This is a lot easier to do this simple shape. But I kind of like the detail of the oak leaf, and I don't know what this kind of leaf is, but it's a leaf, a very simple one. This would actually be a lot easier to make doodles into. So now I'm going to bring that and just take my blending tool and bring it in so I can get that nice. So this is just stenciling without a lot of material. I mean, you could use a stamp pad if you want to color. Actually, colored stamp pads work really well. And now I've got my beautiful leaf shape that I can build more designs on. And I could be crazy, or I can make funny little circles, or I can do more. Just take it and create like a line down the middle. And do the same thing. And just that nice, it's already kind of shaded and dimensional. That's real simple. But then I can do like the circles, or in fact, I'm going to do some circles. You can do squigglies, you can do Zentangles. Maybe one side I would do circles and maybe one side lines. It's just all up to you how you want to doodle inside your shapes. But that lovely shaded, blended airbrush look is what we kind of wanted to do. And I will probably finish this later because I do want to see how everybody's doing. I feel like I haven't talked to you in a bit. So we can just keep doodling inside those shapes, and then I could do a little design here. I really want to see how everybody's doing. I want to check in with everybody.